Hey, good morning, everybody. It is week 9. We've got the week accurate this week. Last week, I also said it was week 9, but no, this is week 9. I was trying to trick you on the trick or treat week. So hopefully we gave you a treat and gave you some good advice last week. We'll let you know what we're doing today here in about 30 seconds. Welcome back, and again, we are live. We are excited. It is week 9. We're getting close, man. We're 4 weeks away from locking into those playoffs, and we're not doing it alone. On my left, I got my man Joe. Joe, how are we doing this morning?
Ready to rock. Week 9, second half of the season. Sent out some, league standings with playoff pictures already. So you're in the back 9 when you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're going to start stashing defenses, handcuffs, things like that. This is the time to start doing that, loading that roster up. If you're looking good and you're not having a whole lot of decisions to be made. With more on that down below, we got my man Jeff. Jeff, how are we doing today?
Right. Hey, always great. Hey, man, best Sunday, at least football Sunday of the year, when you get an extra hour of sleep for daylight savings, my friend. So always got to load up a little bit on some sleep and then join you boys this morning. It's always going to be a good morning.
It was kind of unfortunate for me. I was like, oh, sweet, I got to sleep in till 4:30 this morning. And in fact, it was 3:30, and I was still pretty mad about that. But at the same time, what can you do? That extra hour always helps out. That used to be like my jam, is to go out and drink until 3 o'clock in the morning. That was like the thing to do back when. But man, it's a whole different world when you weren't getting that sleep anyways. Joe, why don't you go ahead and kick us off right here with let's get some injuries.
Yeah, it feels like not too bad of a week, which is always nice to see. Quarterback news, Jordan Love looks like he's going to tough it out today. That's a big game, Detroit at Green Bay. I'll tell you something, it's really NFC Central, North, whatever the hell they call it now, no team under 500. Just saw a stat about the NFC East. It's been 20 years since a team has won the NFC East 2 years in a row. Obviously, you got the Cowboys, Eagles, Washington all making some noise in the NFC East. So I like seeing the cold weather divisions kind of back on top. That always kind of warms my heart here, being a New Englander. But Jordan Love going to play in that big division matchup tonight. We know that Flacco's playing for Anthony Richardson. We know that Carr is back for New Orleans. Bryce Young getting a start this week for Carolina. That's about it for quarterbacks. Running backs, no Zach Moss for Cincinnati this week, so Brown will have that job to himself. What else? We know that Tracy for the Giants pretty much has played his way into a starting role, whether it's injury or just performance related at this point against Devin Singletary. Josh Jacobs is expected to play today for Green Bay. Again, that's a big game. Tony Pollard feels good and anticipates he will play for Tennessee home against the Patriots. And, kind of funny with Tony Pollard, right? Like, we're a year and a half into his Tennessee Titan career, and he's finally doing what people thought he would do. 5 out of 7 weeks this year, he's been in double digits for the Titans. Brian Robinson Jr., questionable, and he will play today for the Washington Commanders against the Giants. And it looks like both Jacksonville running backs will be available. Wide receiver position, we know Tampa's got no wide receivers at this point. I think Jeff's got to leave early today. He's the closest one to Tampa out of all of us. He'll be in the slot, I think, for Baker Mayfield. You might have to clarify who'll be in the slot or in Baker's slot, one or the other. That's why he missed last night also, but we'll talk about that later. The Rams will have their full corpse of wide receivers. Christian Kirk out for Jacksonville. Brian Thomas will play. Probably the biggest wide receiver news of the day. DK Metcalf out again for Seattle. Look for Njigba and Lockett to potentially have a big game. T. Higgins out for Cincinnati. just doesn't feel like that team can get healthy altogether on a week. Jamison Williams out once again for Detroit, not injury related. Amari Cooper, very questionable right now for Buffalo. I feel like that's kind of a big one fantasy-wise. You got Keon Coleman coming on. Big difference whether or not Cooper plays there or not. I will leave us at that from an injury.
Excellent. Do you so on the Anthony Richardson thing, do you think that's a valid move to bench that guy for Flacco right now? I know I saw him tap out last week, and I know that's kind of the big deal because we never want to see our quarterback do that, right? We always want to see our quarterback play through a whole entire game. But do you think Anthony Richardson being benched for Flacco is a good move here?
Well, so of course, to me, that's 100%. That's the best move. If you got a team of guys. So this is supposed to be your young second-year number one guy leading the way, and he says, I'm tired. You can lose a locker room there. And Joe Flacco kind of almost won them over anyways. I know I believe the game he started, he didn't win, but he put up some good numbers. And Flacco seemingly put up great numbers last year and the one game he played this year. So, but Richardson saying he's tired is the most Bush League move I have ever seen in my life. And it just sits down. Forget it. The locker room's done. I think that's Flacco's job the rest of the year, as far as I'm concerned. What do you think, Joe?
I mean, yeah, it almost feels like they were happy when Richardson did that last week because they immediately kind of used that to make the benching feel okay. Flacco's the better quarterback right now, so I have no issue with that. The other narrative going around with this, though, in the NFL in general is about we're drafting these rookies. We're throwing them in with, starting immediately with teams that have horrible offensive lines, no weapons. What do you expect to happen? I don't know if I buy that, though, because you've got like so many, you got Jaden Daniels. You got a lot of young quarterbacks who are making an impact right away. He doesn't happen to be one of them. He's gotten, in the 2024 version of the NFL, he's gotten a lot of opportunity. In the 1990 version, he didn't get a lot of opportunity. But where we are today, I mean, I don't know how many starts he has under his belt, but it's double digits, right?
I don't know if it is. I mean, if it is, he might be just past that. But even if that's the case, right? You're tired, okay? You don't say it to the media. That's another bonehead move by this guy. Come up with something, guy. Don't just say, "Oh, I'm tired," and just sit down, idiot. I don't know.
He has played exactly 10 games he has started. That's interesting. I thought it would have been more.
Yeah, no. So to me, it's a very unfortunate thing that he had to do that. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback do that before. I've seen linemen do that, defensive linemen do that, and those guys. I mean, to be fair, those guys are like 400 pounds, and so when they're taking one step or two steps, it's like me taking 30 steps. I mean, the effort that it requires to move something that gigantic is next level, right? So I think it was the right move to an extent, but I do like to see my quarterbacks get a little bit more experience on the NFL football field. It kind of sucks that this happened to him. I think he's going to have to learn from it very, very quick. We got a question here. Jerry Backshaw says, when is the trade deadline? Has it passed already? No, it actually ends 4:00 Eastern on Tuesday, I believe, on election day. So there's going to be so much going on that Tuesday that a lot of this stuff is probably going to get wiped out. What do you guys think about the trade deadline? Any big moves coming up that you guys can think of?
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. I mean, that's something, as I'm sure as we're talking, some stuff will probably pop up, or some scenarios will probably pop up. I don't know, anything off the top of your head, Joe? I'm not coming up with anything immediately.
I feel like we've probably seen most of the big name trades with these wideouts that have gone. That being said, I'm sure there will be a couple more, but I don't think the Rams are selling after their win last week. And if they win again, I'm sure there's some teams that would love to buy, whether it's Tampa and a wide receiver, a couple other teams with a wide receiver. But what do you think? Anything left big, Mikey, other than these wideouts we've already seen move?
So let's go with this scenario real quick. Let's say the Rams lose today. The Rams lose today. I believe that Cooper Kupp becomes a viable trade option. I think that they'll make a move towards that direction with, say, Cooper Kupp. And like you said, to one of these wide receiver needy teams, Denver, who's oddly enough in the playoff hunt. Tampa Bay is another team that's that's a really good, solid team as long as you can get a little bit of depth at that. What do you guys think about Deontay Johnson to the Ravens? Now, you guys, I know, Jeff, you were never a big Deontay Johnson fan. Hopefully he sold you a little bit more after the past few weeks because he has looked a whole lot better this season, I think. But I've always tried to give him separation credit up to and like DeAndre Hopkins because I think that's how good Deontay Johnson is. I think he's going to be a huge fit with this Baltimore Ravens team. I think he'll easily take over the one. Do you guys have anything on that one as well?
It cracks me up because out of all the years where Baltimore has been good but has needed a wideout, this was like the least of those years because Bateman's been better than he's ever been. Flowers obviously has come on even more so in his second year. Andrews has finally woken up at the tight end position, and when he wasn't awake, likely was doing pretty well. And then obviously they got the running game with Derrick Henry and even Justice Hill out of the backfield, been good in the pass game. So I was actually a little surprised that they made the move. But that being said, it's got to make them a little bit more of just a fully complete offense. You're going to have to single cover all those guys, which they're not like Justin Jefferson number ones, but that's a lot of things to think about for a defense now on top of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the ball too.
Yep. Nope, I agree. Anything you got to add to that, Jeff?
I just like to say, I was ahead of my time on Deontay Johnson. This is a few years ago where I was all in on this guy when he was with Pittsburgh and just, okay, this is the guy. He's very talented. He's going to put up some big numbers, and he did not. He let me down horribly, but actually put up some decent numbers the following year. So I was out in front of this guy, but he let me down so much. He's not there with A.J. Dillon, but he's getting close.
Gotcha. Well, hopefully he can redeem himself as a Baltimore Raven down there. I definitely understand the frustration, but I mean, you got to figure like who was throwing him the ball in Pittsburgh. Name the starter that's still playing football that was throwing him the ball, and the answer is there isn't any. Everybody who was throwing him the football has long since passed as a quarterback for that team, like Kenny Pickett in his tiny hands.
Real quick, Mikey, I'm getting a question coming in, and I've gotten it a couple times today. How do we feel about Tracy's value for the Giants today, just in general? And I kind of have a hard time with that one because I love how he's come on, but I don't know. They've had a lot of luck against Washington historically, but I just feel like the Redskins are going to kind of get them today.
Did you just call them the Redskins? That's funny.
Yeah, I did. The Commanders.
That's good stuff. No, it's been a while since I've heard him called the Redskins. I used to do that all the time. I always say San Diego Chargers too. That's another one there. No, I think Tracy's actually probably a pretty solid play today. He's been getting the job done. I mean, he obviously usurped Devin Singletary. There is no question. He is the starter. He is the one there. I like his odds today, although I don't really like that matchup. Washington does have a pretty decent run defense. Depending on what kind of Jaden Daniels shows up today, if we've got a free reign Jaden Daniels, if he's able to go do what he does best and just kind of run around the outside and things like that, this should be a passing heavy game where I like Tracy a little bit less, but I still think his volume play is pretty good.
Well, and you said traditionally the Giants have been better against Washington. What you really mean is Daniel Jones has been better against Washington than anybody else. And what I hesitate with Tracy is he's been so up and down. So you have these FanDuel games, 2.6 next week, 16.5, and then 19.7, then 4.7, then last week 25. The guy's been so up and down. It's hard for me to say, or just with any confidence say he's going to do that in back-to-back weeks. So, but your point of how Daniel Jones performs against Washington over the years has been interesting. So if you want to reiterate for the people, I think they heard it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's just bizarre that, I mean, if you took Daniel Jones' career stats, which are average at best anyway, and took the Commander games out of them, you're literally looking at like a Jamarcus Russell type NFL career, except longer. So something about the Redskins for him, but at the same time, this is certainly the best Redskin team that he's gone up against, I think, in any of his years going against them these last 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome. We got our man Trans-Siberian. What is happening, my man? I'm glad to see that you're doing okay, still safe over there in good old Ukraine. He says, my 3 wise men of fantasy, starting AJ and Downs and at wide receiver. We need a flex. We got JSN or Shakir. Also at the tight end, we got Ingram or Hawkinson, half PPR. Shout out to Taco Bell, Kearney, Nebraska, dude. That is the closest Taco Bell to me, by the way, is in Kearney, Nebraska. That's how far I have to drive to go to Taco Bell right there. That's awesome. Joe, what do you think right here?
Yeah, these are some legit scenarios here. You got to watch out. We don't know if Amari Cooper's playing yet today for Buffalo or not. That, if he isn't, Shakir, who has been good regardless, but, you would think he'd get even more looks to go along with Keon Coleman. But you also have no Metcalf. And it was really interesting last week because Lockett didn't do anything at all. But Njigba had a really nice game. They're playing the Rams. There could be a lot of points in that game. So I think they're both pretty good plays, to be honest. I think if Amari Cooper plays, I'll probably go JSN. And if Cooper doesn't play, I think I might lean Shakir in that scenario, to be honest. And then, the other big news, and I should have mentioned this with the injury stuff, Hawkinson is back making his season debut for Minnesota. Obviously, a ton of weapons there now. So I was going to throw the question out to you guys today. How do we feel about him? And nothing reported about whether or not he's on a snap count. You think Hawkinson gets thrown right in? Or, do they kind of get him in gently? That being said, for this week, as much as Jacksonville's a disaster, Evan Ingram is just getting just a horde of targets every week. No Christian Kirk there this week. So I think I would probably play that one safe for at least Hawkinson's debut and go Ingram this week. See how Hawkinson does going into next week and the rest of the season.
I like it. What do you say here, Jeff?
So as far as the first question is concerned, the JSN or Shakir, I just think Smith and Jigba, well, especially from an injury standpoint, which Joe pointed out earlier, that's just going to vault him. I think he's a better receiver than Lockett. Lockett has been pretty consistent over the years, but without Metcalf there, I think JSN just jumps into that one slot. So for me, I would say JSN, even though Shakir, he'll get some targets, he'll get some receptions, but I don't think he'll be looked that way. Allen will look his way as much as Geno Smith will look Jackson Smith and Jacob's way. I think Geno Smith actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, might actually lead the league in passing yards right now. But on the second one, Ingram or Hawkinson, it just comes down to who do I trust more. I just have to say Hawkinson at this point. I get it that he's coming off injury, but I just think he's a better target. It's a better matchup for Minnesota. They are who are they? I'm forgetting who they're up against. They're on the 8 p.m. game against Indy. So I like that matchup as opposed to Jacksonville at Philadelphia. So just give me Hawkinson and then JSN.
So now, we just had 2 hits of news, just bang, bang, right back to back. We have Brian Robertson Jr. is out today, and Amari Cooper is out today. Both. So for me, that I'm almost on this first one. I know I'm kind of not thinking out inside the box here, but I think I might be sitting downs here, and I might be playing JSN and Shakir with both of those other guys as premier receivers being out today. I feel like both of those guys are slated to have pretty big games and pretty good. Although maybe, actually I'm going to lean JSN here. I do still like Downs. I like Downs with Flacco. Shakir, I do like, but I feel like that game's going to be more one on the ground. And when we talk about our daily, you'll see more of what I'm talking about. I think that's going to be a pound against each other type game right there. And so I think it's going to be all ground. Now, on the tight end position, now Jordan Addison has yet to have a huge game this year. Jalen Naylor has yet to have a huge game this year. So to think that we're going to start seeing a second target start having huge games over there in Minnesota, I just can't trust it. I think Evan Ingram's proved more than enough with his target share going on with that team right now that we're definitely going to be leaning Ingram here as well. So I am going to say JSN on the first one, though it's close because Shakir should have himself a pretty good game with everybody sitting out there. And again, man, stay safe over there, especially with everything kind of going down. Tuesday, it looks like Tuesday is going to be a pretty big day everywhere. Hopefully everybody stays safe. Duck, if you think you're not going to be safe, come to Nebraska. I'll take care of you. We got Boss Man. He says, my boys, what up, guys? Hope you're all good. We hope you're good too, my man. He says, let's talk. This is my dilemma this week. We got pick one, full PPR. Oh, and we got a list. We got Romeo Dubs. We got Deontay Johnson, Khalil Shakir, Calvin Ridley, and Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman has reminded me of Josh Gordon, man. Flashbacks of Josh Gordon on the Browns. This guy getting 2 touchdowns in the second half. Everything I'm seeing out of him. Jeff, what do you think right here?
I think it's a little fool's goal with Cedric Tillman, and that might come back to bite me. But I'm just not sold yet. as Jameis Winston being the savior of the Cleveland Browns and Cedric Tillman being that receiver as well. So Calvin Ridley, I mean, what has Calvin Ridley done since he left Atlanta? I mean, he's had some games here. I mean, he's had some games here and there, but it's not somebody I can trust on a consistent basis as well. So it kind of leaves me with Dubs, Johnson, and Khalil Shakir. Just because of what I said about Deontay Johnson, I can't trust the guy. He's let me down too much. I'm not. I don't think I'm going the route. Even though I kind of like that matchup with Baltimore because you can throw on Denver. You can't necessarily run against them. So I don't necessarily mind that too much. But I just can't pick Johnson. So at least Shakir and Dubs. I'm going to go Shakir because of the injury. What we just said. Even though I like Dubs, but I just think and they're going to be able to throw on Detroit. I don't know the weather in Green Bay. You can.
Rainy.
So that actually kind of helps me out a little bit better. That should be a little bit more of a ground game because of the weather there. So I'll lean Shakir, a little bit over Deontay Johnson there.
Oh, Mr. Mute.
Mikey's on mute.
It makes me kind of start to wonder too, is there a chance that have we ever looked back to see if Gabe Davis and Calvin Ridley might not be the same exact person? Like maybe one week that guy's injured somewhere in Jacksonville, and then the next week he's injured in Tennessee. And I don't know. This is probably worth some research here. I think that him and Gabe Davis might actually be the same exact guy because they both do the same exact thing. They'll show up for a 1 week thing and they'll have like 18 touchdowns and then they disappear. And we talk about how great they are at the end of the season. I think for me right here, I do like Cedric Tillman. I think we do see Jameis Winston come a little bit more down to earth this week. Cedric Tillman has had a couple of good weeks in a row though. I mean, so this guy's kind of been able to transcend even a bad team and they're looking better every single week. With Chubb, they're able to open it up. I'm leaning Cedric Tillman here. So I'm going to lean it over to you, Joe. What do you think?
This is first of all, my mind's racing right now with Brian Robinson out. He's been questionable a lot, but he's usually plays. So I'm thinking about Eckler and like, how do you apply Eckler today now against the Giants? DFS too. That's a big one because he's a nice cheap start. As far as this goes, you got to throw out Deontay Johnson this week because they've already reported that he's probably only getting up to like 15 plays this week. So I think you got to throw Johnson out of the mix just from the perspective that he's not going to play that much. Understanding the Cooper injury and they're home against Miami, who has Tua back, it's really hard to resist Shakir here because he's pretty much most guaranteed out of all these guys, the volume. Dobbs will get his action, but they're healthy there from a wideout perspective. He's got a lot of competition. Shakir is going to be running all over that field today. I'll be interested to see what Tillman does because I do believe that the passing stats that Jameis Winston's going to put up in Cleveland are going to be very real every week. It's not going to always translate into wins, but the stats are going to be there. So I think you can have some lightning in the bottle with Tillman, and it makes me want to look at Tillman from a DFS perspective because he's pretty cheap. But I think in this scenario, I'm going Shakir.
Well, and the three guys we just talked about here. So I'm just looking at them straight. They happen to be straight in a row here on FanDuel. Tillman, Shakir, Ridley. So Shakir the last 2 weeks, 16 receptions. Tillman the last 2 weeks, 15 receptions. Ridley the last 2 weeks, 13 receptions. So certainly interesting as far as that's concerned. It still doesn't make me pick Calvin Ridley just because 10 of those 13 came last week. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, and I still somewhat agree with that. Like I said, so for me, just Cedric Tillman has just been looking so good. Like we were just saying right there, he's had 12 targets, 9 targets, 7 catches, 8 catches, almost 100 both times. A couple of touchdowns last week that really boosted up his value right there. So for me, I do like Cedric Tillman here still. Khalil Shakir is probably going to be more of your solid floor bet right here, but I think Cedric Tillman's going to be your ceiling play. Maybe you had to face off somebody who had a big game last week. I know Joe Mixon definitely kicked some people behind at the start. If I was maybe say facing him, Cedric Tillman would be my play. If I'm feeling really confident, I feel like Khalil Shakir is my play, and that's kind of where I'm leaning on that one. We got our guy Kevin Turner. He says, "What's going on, fellas? Half point, 12-man PPR. We're hurting at wide receiver because of the bye and injuries. Pick 2 to start. We got Darius Slayton, Elijah Moore, Jalen Coker, and Demarcus Robinson. Joe, we're going to let you start with this. What do you got here, bud?
So, it's funny because Darius Slayton just won't go away. And he's pretty much been good for double-digit fantasy points most of the season this year. And I had him from a DFS perspective going into this show. But as the conversation always does, it evolves my thinking for the day. And I just put him back on the bench for Tillman from a DFS perspective. Tillman's a little cheaper too. But I guess my point is there, I like Slayton. And, when you're in a situation like this between buys and injuries, I think out of all the options here, and Coker's a little interesting based on the injury situation there, but I think Darius Slayton is your best shot at double-digit points this week. Demarcus Robinson, you want to think he's going to do it every week, but he doesn't do it every week. Moore, I'm not there yet. Coker could be getting the opportunities this week, but I think Slayton's the most proven out of the bunch, and he's been doing it pretty consistently this year.
What do you say here, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go with what Joe said as far as Daniel Jones against Washington versus everybody else. I guess would be the only reason, and I don't like any of these choices, by the way. I mean, Jalen Coker might be one of the best last names in the league, by the way, but he has to play for Carolina. I can't trust.
I hear he's really fast.
The guy, I tell you, man, he's speedy. So especially after a TV timeout, so that guy just right in there. So, but Slayton, I'd have to lean his way simply because Daniel Jones only shows up against Washington over the years, and out of these 4, which are just the whole thing's a train wreck, I think, unfortunately, and I apologize that Kevin's in this position, but I'd have to say Slayton out of those 4.
I could just see Jalen Coker running it, all the way in, running past the end zone, running straight to the bathroom, come out, kick a quick field goal, then run out, kick it, go tackle the dude, get the strip sack, fumble, and just keep on tenaciously tearing up the NFL one
Mike, he's gonna be like that guy at the beginning of Ted too. He's like, I bet you can't tell who it is, and Coker's over there with the jump rope, in the
while on an exercise bike.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's
funny. I really like Jalen Coker a lot. I really do, like, outside of the jokes and things like that. The one thing I just can't get behind is Bryce Young has not looked like the quarterback that we need him to look like. I don't think that offensive production comes there. Demarcus Robinson looks great until you take away touchdowns. And then it's 2 catches for like 7 yards or something like that he had last week. Just happened to put the biscuit in the basket twice, which made him appealing this week. For me, it's got to be Darius Slayton. Even with Malik Neighbors healthy, Darius Slayton, like Joe said, he just doesn't seem to want to go away. And I think that he gets enough of red zone targets and things like that to be valid. Elijah Moore's out. Jalen Coker, I don't like the offense there. And Demarcus Robinson just isn't getting the volume. So Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I know Puka Nacua is questionable, but I do believe he is playing today. I think that we already got that notification as well that Puka Nacua is in. So I'll double check that right now.
Yeah, I believe you're right. I believe you're right there.
And hold on, Mike. Hold on.
We'll play Sunday.
I just got a text message from Jalen Coker. 1 second. We're good.
We're all kind of leaning the same way on that one. Like I said, he's going to kick field goals. He's going to punt it, but you just don't. He also might just explode, punch a referee, and be out in the first quarter. You never know. We got Sam Darnold go. That's the wrong one. We got Flex, Montgomery, Dowdle, or Pittman. Jeff, I'm going to let you lead this one off.
Ooh. Wow, wow. I actually don't really mind this question. So immediately I'll take Pittman out of it, even though actually, I shouldn't say immediately just because it's an interesting scenario given Flacco being in there instead of lazy Anthony Richardson or bench myself Anthony Richardson. Although I'd probably of these 3, I'll have to go Montgomery because or given the weather forecast there in Green Bay, it looks like it's going to be more of a ground game than air game. Although Pittman is an intriguing one with Flacco being there. Flacco, man, has just been – I mean, he's been putting up 300-yard games even with the Browns last year, and then I think he had over 300 this year. But I'll lean Montgomery a little bit over Pittman. Dowdle
like
will be
that.
there
Actually,
completely.
I think I would actually lean Montgomery here as well. I do like Michael Pittman with Joe Flacco. He is the better receiver out there. I think that it's just a matter of time before we start seeing that be the end result, especially with not having to worry about who's starting next which week and things like that. I think you're going to see this offense start settling down. Montgomery's just been a beast, man. He's been getting it done. Give me Montgomery here. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, this is a tough one because the only thing with Montgomery is he's limited by the fact that Gibbs is there, and I mean these guys. I'm surprised it hasn't been talked about more because what Montgomery and Gibbs are doing this year is very close to what Jamal Charles and Thomas Jones were doing together, their best couple of years together in Kansas City, and what it was they were two of the top 20 fantasy running backs on the same team. And you're pretty much getting that from these two guys every freaking week this year, which is awesome. But at the same time, it does limit Montgomery. No Ezekiel Elliott this week. He's suspended by the team. So Dotto's really going to get pretty much all of the looks in Dallas. And I like Pittman way more with Flacco. That being said, Montgomery still is the safest play of the week there. I do wonder about Dowdle this week because, I mean, he should get the goal line touches in addition to everything else he gets. He should have an opportunity to have a pretty good game there without Elliott getting any of those touches.
Dalvin Cook, baby. Dalvin Cook's there, though, so don't forget.
True.
Dalvin Cook will be stealing them.
Let me ask you this about just because Montgomery, and in that scenario, I know the guy had Eckler too. So now with and then you got Tracy. Eckler or Tracy? Who do you think's the better play in that game this week from a running back perspective with Brian Robinson out?
Eckler, for sure. With Robinson out, I'm leaning Eckler here. I think they're going to be able to get up on him pretty quick. I'm not crazy up on. I think it's going to be actually a lower scoring game that a lot of people are giving it credit for.
And I mean, honestly, who could forget? I'm glad Joe brought it up because, I mean, gosh, who could forget about the impressive Thomas Jones from 12 seasons ago behind Jamal Charles, which I'm sorry. I mean, everybody forgot about that. Okay. Come on. I mean, where you pulled that one from, Joe? Did Jalen Coker, did he text you that too? Or what happened?
Trans-Siberian says, Mike, where are you from? Wife asks every week about your accent. I tell her I have no clue. As far as I know, I don't have any accent at all, but I was born and raised in the frontier of Wyoming, my man. One of the very few people that you'll probably actually ever meet from Wyoming. But yep, that's where I'm from. It's a very desolate, lonely, quiet place. That's why I'm so loud and so ragged looking and stuff like that. It's because I was raised by wolves in the middle of the frontier.
Born and raised in the foothills of Stoner County that we know in Wyoming, I believe, right?
That's right. Yes. Yes, we're men are men and sheep are scared, my man. We got a flex. Olave or Chuba? We'll go with you, Joe.
Man. Yeah, this is another tough one. They're playing each other. Olave's back, Carr's back. So you'd think the Saints kind of bounce back offensively. Chuba's been the only bright spot offensively this year for Carolina, really. I don't know. I guess Olave is probably a little safer, but man, it feels like every time you count Chuba out, he comes up and has a chubby game. He gets a little girthy on us, you know?
I love it. What do you say here, Jeff?
Of course, Joe's going to use a term, girthy, that nobody's heard about in like 27 years. Yeah, he's got girth to him, you know. So, hey, man, you know, I've said it before. We've done the little jingle before, man. It's a love affair, Chuba. So Joe thinks Olave might be the safer play. I actually think Chuba's going to be the safer play, just because you'd have to assume that he's going to have at least 15 carries, whereas Olave, I get it, Carr is back and he'll have more opportunity, but how many receptions could he get? Now, he could bust one and it could be completely wrong. He could have, 7 receptions and bust one for 60 yards and a touchdown, but that still doesn't rule out that Hubbard is going to have more opportunity than Olave.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just the volume play alone here. Now, I didn't see that Carr was officially back. I thought I had actually heard that Spencer Rattler was the
I could be wrong.
So I do like Olave a lot more today than I have in the recent week.
I could be wrong about that. We should confirm that.
No, I just double checked it. Spencer Rattler is out. Derek Carr is in. But it's still Chuba for me, even though it's very close with Olave having his guy back. He just hasn't been able to do it this much this year. We got Daniels or Hurts at the quarterback position. Jeff, what do you got here?
Regardless of shit, I'm thinking Daniel Jones. I'm an idiot. Now, Jaden Daniels or Jalen Hurts. I mean, truly, man, how do you get away from the runaway freight train of hype that is Jaden Daniels? Hurts is going to be Hurts. He'll get his, he'll probably get his 1 yard touchdown run. He'll get some passing yardage up there, man. The more exciting guy to me is Jaden Daniels. Has kind of flipped this league on its head. I could see Daniels. He'll probably have somewhere in the vicinity of 250 yards passing ish or something like that, and maybe 80 yards rushing and a touchdown. So I think it'll be fairly comparable. You can't necessarily go wrong one way or the other. To me, Jaden Daniels is much more exciting than Jalen Hurts. So I'm going that route.
What do you say here, Joe?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I agree with what Jeff says, and I'm very much, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. But then Jalen Hurts had 3 freaking rushing touchdowns last week on top of the passing, and they're home against Jacksonville. They both have a good matchup, obviously, with Washington playing the Giants. I think it's probably like the one true scenario where you can't go wrong, but if one of them is going to have 30 and the other one's going to have 23, you want to have the guy who's going to have the 30. I don't know which one that is this week. I really don't. With Brian Robinson out, I think that means less running and more throwing in the red zone for Washington. And it also means if it is running in the red zone, it's probably going to be Daniels. So I think I was going Hurts before, but with Brian Robinson out, it actually kind of makes me lean Daniels a little bit.
So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Hurts is probably going to be the better play. Giants have this uncanny ability to suck you down to their level, right? Like where you can't play effective football. We have like a lot of 17 to 20 games and things like that where we don't have the scoring that we do. Dude, you guys know I love Jaden Daniels. You know I love Jaden Daniels in the offseason. You know I loved him just as much as I love Caleb Williams. I thought this was a really good rookie class coming in here this year. And Daniels has even as much as I liked him, he's quintupled the expectations I had for that kid already. So it's a guy that you can't really count out. If he had plays designed for him, like the tush push and things like that, I would say definitely. But if Philadelphia gets within 1 yard, 2 yards, which they seem to find themselves a lot, it's always going Hurts' way. It doesn't matter. There is not going to be anybody else. They're not even going to let hardly anybody else. Saquon's there for one thing, and that's to push up his backup, support, and cover any fumbles, and that's literally it. So for me, it's Hurts because he's got so many plays designed just like that it's going to be so many situations, and especially if we score out first downs. What I'm going to try to do with this team, because I'm assuming this is a single quarterback league, because we're asking this question. I might try to package Daniels into something right now. I know Hurts is on the other side of his bye. So I might try to package Daniels into something and try to get something else in return. Possibly 2 skill positions if you can. I know single quarterback devalues the quarterback position quite a bit, but Jaden Daniels is a guy that I just because I don't want to have this conundrum week in, week out, because both guys are amazing quarterbacks, right? And this is just going to be a situation you're going to be overthinking week after week. You're going to get it wrong 90% of the time, because that's just how fantasy football gods like to laugh at you. You know, they love to make the guy on your bench go off, and that's just something that's always happened. Like I said, package something with this guy, get rid of him, or one or the other. I mean, I'm happy taking either one of these guys at the helm point forward, but what does suck is when you have to start making that decision week in, week out.
I tell you what I'm very impressed with you fellas is this morning is you really just brought the grammar this morning. One guy says conundrum, the other guy says Garthy. I can't wait to hear what's next coming from you boys. This has been an
some of us found ourselves in girthy conundrums last night.
I mean,
that does happen to the best of us.
If Jalen Coker is part of that conundrum, then it's a fucking party. So
you hang out with Jalen Coker first, and then it just kind of goes downhill from there. We got Mike VA. He says, "What's up, guys?" He says he's got 2 for us this week. He's playing his brother, who's 8-0. Well, let's get this son of a bitch then. We got Sutton at Baltimore or Dubs at Detroit, and then Tracy versus Washington or Stevens at Tennessee. Thanks in advance, my dude. Jeff, lead us off here.
Dude, I hate non-PPR, man. I really do.
I agree with that.
Those leagues just suck. So let's start with Sutton or Dobbs. I'd say I'd have to lean. Oh shit, man. We just kind of trashed that game, the Green Bay Detroit game, as far as the air is concerned, just because of how the weather's going to be and the fact that there's probably going to be a running game. Cortland Sutton is really just one of those guys, man. He's up there with the Calvin Ridleys of the world. You just don't know what the hell to expect. Bo Nix has been hilariously better or fantasy relevant lately, but maybe not necessarily through the air. The Baltimore defense. Can you put up yardage on them? I guess you can. So I would say Sutton slightly, only because of the weather situation in Detroit. As far as the second one is concerned, I mean, I'll roll with the hot hand with Tracy. I don't know. I don't like anything that I've seen from the Patriots offense, period. And so Tracy has proven recently that he can put up some numbers and we'll see what happens in Washington, but I would say Sutton and Tracy. What say you boys?
What you got here, Joe?
Yeah, these are tough ones. I could go back and forth in Sutton and Dobbs because, no matter how many weapons Green Bay has there, Dobbs just kind of consistently always does his thing. He gets a lot of red zone targets, but with the weather and, Sutton he went 8 for 100 last week. The week before his bye week, he had a decent week. Baltimore can be thrown on. We know that. So I actually think I'm going to go. Jeff, you went Sutton here by a hair. Yeah. Is that what you said? Yeah, I think I'm going to echo that. I'm okay with Dobbs because he really does get a lot of red zone targets, but I think Sutton has a higher ceiling to have a bigger game. And that running back one too, like when I first read it, I was thinking Stevenson, but I kind of think, and I'm looking now, well, Stevenson went for 20, 48, 2 touchdowns last week. It's tough. Stevenson's got a good shot at getting in the end zone if they get close, but it's going to be really ugly in trade. I think I'm with Jeff on that one too. I think I'm going to go Tracy there. Tracy's averaging, he feels like he's gouging 5 yards a carry out. No Brian Robinson makes it a little more interesting of a game potentially. And yeah, I don't think I want to put any stock in that Patriot offense right now. I mean, they've got a good thing going with the rookie quarterback. It looks like they've got some hope there, and that's great. But I mean, last week Stevenson went 20 for 48. That's an abysmal per carry average, despite the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he had 3 receptions as well, which kind of helped him out, especially on a PPR. I'm with you guys both on this one. I think Sutton by a hair because I do feel like Denver's going to have to throw the ball a lot more than they're going to want to in this game. That Denver defense has been looking solid, but if anybody can crack them, it's going to be Baltimore. Baltimore, especially with Deontay Johnson now, is going to be such a tough cover. You got Surtain, which can only do so much. Honestly, I feel like the Broncos corners have been outperforming expectations by 100% this entire season. But even this vast defense is going to have a lot to swallow with every angle going to have to be plugged, right? You got to worry about 2 running backs with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson. You're going to have to worry about Zay Flowers. You're going to have to worry about Deontay Johnson, even for just 15 or 20 snaps. I imagine those are going to be like 3rd down plays and things like that where we're going to split for a 3rd wide receiver. But a lot of times they can even opt that in with 2 tight ends. They just have so many dang weapons on that team that I think Sutton is definitely the play here. And Tracy's just been looking the part. He really looks like he's been doing really good. He's making New York say Saquon who, even though at the beginning of the season, Saquon was tearing it up and ripping it up. This guy's been looking really good for the rest there. And I see that kind of continuing throughout the season. So I'm with these guys. Let's go Tracy and Sutton right here. We got Eric Schaefer. He says pick 2 We got Stevenson, Chuba, Waddle, Etienne, and Ridley. Joe, lead us off here.
Yeah, this is a little sticky. So you know what? I'm going Chuba for sure. We're getting some girth out of this week. We'll be walking with a limp tomorrow morning, hopefully. I like Chuba here, and for the other one, you can't go with the Jacksonville running game, man, because that is such a platoon situation with Bigsby now. Ridley, I'm not putting any money on Ridley. So I think it's got to be Waddle for me. Or it's Waddle or Stevenson. So where do you go? Tua's back. I think in this situation, I'm going to go Chuba and Stevenson and go with the running backs. But you could sell me on Waddle.
I actually agree with that completely right there. I think I'm going to go with the running backs here. I do like Waddle. Etienne is not. I'm with you. You just can't trust a Jacksonville running back right now. And Ridley, again, I need proof that he's not Gabe Davis. What do you think here, Jeff?
Yeah, I think Joe hit the nail on that. It is a sticky, girthy situation we've got here with this conundrum. So I'll go with Ty goes to the running back. I'll go with you mentioned Stevenson. He's getting about 3-4 targets a week, along with the carries, and Chuba's just simply getting the carries over there in Jacksonville, regardless of how terrible they are. So then leaves you with the two receivers who I like Waddle, I do, but just opportunity wise, you don't know, he's not going to get as much as Stevenson or Hubbard will. And then Etienne with Bigsby there, he's been almost fairly irrelevant seemingly. So we just haven't seen much out of Etienne at all, or what we have seen in the past from him. So give me Stevenson and Hubbard.
Excellent. Yep, that's a clean sweep on that one there as well. So
real quick, Mikey, there's two guys that I'm shocked we haven't heard anything about today. Two running backs. One being Chase Brown for Cincinnati, because Zach Moss is out today and they're playing home against the Raiders. So that running game is Brown's today. That's a pretty platoon situation normally. But I don't know. I like Brown, especially with that matchup, to have a decent game. And then the other one that we had 2 weeks now we haven't heard anything is Nick Chubb is back. And let me tell you something right now. If I had a fantasy team that had Chubba Hubbard and Nick Chubb on it, you can bet your girthy bottom dollar that I would have a Chubba Chubb combo start this week. But I'm just, all kidding aside, I'm surprised that nobody is talking about Nick Chubb this week. I know they're playing the Chargers, who have a good run defense. And then again, Chase Brown taking advantage of that matchup, Cincinnati home against the Raiders. Am I way off on those?
No, and I agree with Nick Chubb, because you can usually set your clock to a few things, right? Like you can guarantee that the sun's going to come up, the sun's going to go down, and Nick Chubb's going to get you 100 yards and possibly a touchdown. I mean, that's usually something you can always set your clock on. Matchup, be damned. He is always a guy that can always outperform his projection. And it is weird that, especially with this comeback coming in on a team that kind of is having a new resurgence, right? And we're going to have to start seeing some things happen there as far as running game goes. I do like Nick Chubb this week. I do like Chubba Hubbard. I think that those are both guys that are really going to be solid plays. Again, I do not like the Chargers defense, but I think that that's the way you beat the Chargers defense, is you just pound the rock down their throat as much as you possibly can. So yeah, give me Nick Chubb, especially Daly. I mean, I like Nick Chubb and Daly a lot as well.
What do you think of Chase Brown?
Right now, Chase Brown's another guy. Now, I think that guy's kind of like a lock and load running back one that you're just going to go ahead and set and forget. That's why I think you probably haven't seen a whole lot of questions. He's been usurping that position since about week 3 or 4. Zach Moss is a great backup, but he's obviously proved he's not a good starter. And I think Chase Brown's going to definitely be a guy that we see a lot more of further down the line. I think he's going to be able to get it done. I really like him a lot point forward too.
Yeah, and you're right. Since week 4, Chase Brown is the starter. The guy is actually, and surprisingly, he's still fairly low. If you're talking DFS standpoint, Chase Brown, you can just fit him perfectly in there. He's only 6,300 on FanDuel. So if you want to throw somebody in who's going to have starter numbers, this is going to be the guy, and certainly a chance to get in the end zone, maybe even more than once. But I believe the Chubba combo, that's like number 8 on Jersey Mike's board, isn't it? I believe with the medium soda. I believe
that's right under the Italian special. I believe.
I think it's Italian. Give me the chub a number 8 with a Coke, please.
We got Superflex Tua or Drake May. Jeff, lead us off.
Well, I mean, can you really start a New England Patriot? I don't think you can. So I don't really care what numbers anybody's putting up as far as what the rookie, whatever. You can't start anybody from New England. Let's just put it that way. I get Miami's, and this is the second week back that Tua's come from his concussion. You know, first week's always tough. Second week, I think he kind of gets into a better rhythm. You'll see some good numbers out of him, and you simply cannot start anybody from the New England offense.
Nope, I agree with that 100%. Tua, I think, takes a big step forward this week. As far as it goes, what do you say here, Joe?
I understand the question because May went over 20, both of his 2 starts, and then he got hurt in the Jets game. He was on his way to kind of the same thing again. And it was kind of a slow start for Tua last week. Like, I did it last week, and I did it again this week because his price didn't change much. I'm playing Tyreek Hill from a DFS perspective because you got to believe that they're going to, you know, and obviously he can have a week of rust or whatnot to that offense in general. They lost to Arizona last week, didn't they?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Close game. I know. So I guess I think Jeff's probably right. You look for them to look better. Obviously tough matchup at Buffalo, but at least they get Buffalo in 50+ degree weather because we know how bad Miami is when it's cold. So I would hope to see Tyreek and Tua bounce back this week. I think again, the Patriots have something with Drake May, but I think Jeff's right. I think you got to go.
Well, and here's the other thing too, you know, tough matchup. You said 2 against Buffalo. The one thing Tennessee actually does well is defense. So to have Drake May versus Tennessee at Tennessee, I think is a worse matchup than Tua at Buffalo.
Fair point.
Yep, I agree with that as well. Oh, we got wide receiver pick 2, Flowers, Reed, or Hopkins. Joe, lead us off here.
This is a good one. Like, where are we? And you know, it's a DFS question too. I don't know if we'll have time to get into that today or not, but like, where are we with Hopkins now, week 2? No Schuster for Kansas City. So Hopkins it's Hopkins with Worthy, but Worthy really isn't getting legit wide receiver looks, even though he's not getting a ton of targets yet. So where are we with Hopkins? You know, Flowers has one more week where he's going to get a lot more snaps than Johnson, as we've already talked about. And then that's going to be a very real scenario for the number 1 spot in Baltimore. And then Reed with the Packers. It's so hard because I sleep on Reed too often just because there's a lot of competition there, but he does seem to be constantly effective when he's healthy. I think that all of that being said this week, I don't think it's a great game script this week for Flowers. I think that's going to be a dirty game with a lot of physicality to it, Denver and Baltimore. So I think I'm actually, but it's hard though too. It's hard to sit Flowers. He's gotten consistent enough to be hard to sit. I kind of like Hopkins a little more this week. It feels hard to not go Hopkins and it feels hard to not go Reed. But I guess most people would probably say go Flowers and Reed and sit Hopkins one more week until he gets a little more acclimated. I'm not even going to answer this yet. I'm going to throw that to you, Mikey. What do you like? Where do you feel Hopkins is week 2 with KC?
You know, I think that's that extra week and being able to get to know that offense a little bit better. I think we're going to see him really take a step up. I mean, like his separation skills is next to none. You got to throw within 15 yards. Patrick Mahomes has been having a tough time getting the ball out there now, not having a tough. That's the wrong way to say that because that guy can just do what he wants to do at will. They just haven't had to. So for me, I think Reed's the player here that I'm going to be on number 1. And I think Flowers for number 2. Flowers versus Deontay Johnson is going to be something worth keeping an eye on. But I don't think this week we have too much to worry about. I think we're going to be fine this week as far as Flowers go. I'm sitting Hopkins for one more week, hoping that I do see the production that I see him be able to bring. What do you say, Jeff?
You know, I'm gonna take Hopkins. This might be unpopular. So here's the thing: Flowers. Even though I don't like the guy, he let me down as much as Deontay Johnson perhaps last year. So he was last year's Deontay Johnson, and Deontay Johnson was Deontay Johnson 2 years ago. So Zay Flowers over the last 4 weeks, he's undeniable. He's gone 3 of the last 4 games. He's gone for over 100 yards. So in the last 4 games, I said that Jaden Reed, so he's had, I think, 14 receptions with only 1 touchdown over the last 4 games. He's had a couple of good games, but earlier in the season, he might be a little bit of fool's gold with the weather there. Give me the flyer with DeAndre Hopkins gelling a little bit better with Patrick Mahomes. That combo is too juicy to lay down. I tell you, it's girthy, it's sticky. I love it. So give me Flowers and Hopkins.
Flowers and Hopkins. Hey, I don't want to argue with that because you just have so much presence there as far as the sticky girth thing. We got Kevin Turner says, appreciate you guys. He got one more. He says, half PPR start Jaden Reed or DeAndre Hopkins or Jacoby Myers. That's we're going to throw that different one up. And Jeff, you just finished. So we're going to let you start that off. What do you got?
I just said it. I'll say it again. Give me girthy, sticky. It's a conundrum, but it's number 8 on Jersey Mike's combo board. Give me Hopkins, baby. Give me Hopkins.
What do you say, Joe?
I think I'm going to go Reed here, but it's close. And I would love to see DeAndre have a big week this week and just kind of be like the number 1 going forward. But I'm going to go Reed here.
Definitely don't have an argument for that. I do like Reed here. But it's close, man. Actually, you know what? I'm going to lean out and I'm going to say Jacoby Myers. I think that Cincinnati has a very porous pass defense. I think that we can see Minshew be able to get the ball down the field a little bit more. I think Jacoby Myers is a guy I'm actually leaning out for. So I'm going to go to the herd there. We're going to go ahead and say Jacoby for me.
That is true because I even said it last week. The one thing that you can do is throw on Cincinnati. So as they've proven. So that's not a bad point, but I still am going to roll the dice. I'm rolling with Hopkins, even though I do like Mike's point on that.
Absolutely. So that catches us up with DFS question, or not DFS questions, with start sit questions. Just make sure if you've got any, drop them in the comments right here, and we will definitely fire them out. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about DFS right now. We're going to go ahead and start out. This is the lineup that I'm going to be going ahead and knocking out today. I really like the options today. It seems like we had a pretty good slate. Like last week seemed like it kind of got pretty crazy, but this week seems like we got a little bit normalcy to it. So for me, I've got Stafford starting out. I think Stafford with Puka and Cup back is a different guy, especially playing at Seattle. I think you're going to have to see these guys throw the ball a lot. For 7,600, I couldn't turn it down. I had A-Chain at Buffalo and then Cook at home versus Miami. I think, like I said, I think we're going to be pounding the ball a lot on the ground between these two teams. Both of them are weaker against the run than they are against the pass. I think we see a lot with both of these guys. We got McConkey for the Chargers, 6,400. He scored twice last week. He's the focus on that team at Cleveland. I think we're going to see at least a touchdown out of McConkey today. Jacoby Myers, I was saying it against Cincinnati at home or away at Cincinnati. I'm really liking Jacoby to take over the one on that team, be the guy to catch over Trey Tucker. We got Azune, Chicago at Arizona. He was 5,600. I feel like this guy could get you a touchdown fairly easily. I do like him to score today. I do like DJ Moore a lot too, but I think this game gets done in the air. Kyle Pitts has been looking good week in, week out. I definitely like to start Kyle Pitts at home against Dallas. I think that's another. I was almost even in on Kirk Cousins yet again this week because I really like Atlanta at home. And then Cooper Kupp to stack up with Stafford. I think Cooper Kupp with the dynamic that these two have, I think we see a lot of touchdowns coming here. And then Chargers defense at Cleveland. I think, like I said, I think we see Jameson Winston come down to earth again today, and I think that's going to be a big part in due to the
I'll say a quick thing, and then I gotta roll, boys, because I got the chili cook-off, the defending champs, Merle's Inlet chili cook-off here. So the S2 golf cars won last year. We're going for 2 in a row. I really like the running backs. I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head on that game. That Cook and A-Chain are going to be home runs, but I don't necessarily. A little weak on the wide receivers. I don't know about Adunze, man. Jacoby Myers. I think he can get some. He gets some targets, get some receptions. And McConkey, can he do it again? I don't know. I guess that remains to be seen if he's really the guy that he is. I really like the running backs. But having said that, I'll let you guys get to that. I got to get to the chili cook-off, and we'll talk to you boys next week.
Good luck, man. Tear it up.
Friend. Yeah, I think Odunze is the key here. If you get a game out of Odunze, this lineup could go big time. He's the X factor, no doubt about it. I think the rest of it looks pretty good. I think Myers and McConkey from a PPR perspective are going to be really nice. And even if Cleveland puts up some points, Winston's going to turn the ball over. So I'm good with the Chargers there. It's just a matter of what Odunze does, I believe.
Yeah, see, and like I said, I mean, it's not like I have huge expectations for him. It's just I needed somebody that I could afford at that range. And he was the guy, right? Like, so that's the one I wanted to go with there, for sure. And you have yours on DraftKings as well, right?
Yeah, let's do it here real quick. We are on DraftKings today, and I gotta say too, I got two lineups. One where I paid up for the quarterback and went Jalen Hurts, but I gotta say, I think my favorite one is the opposite. And we start with Jameis Winston at QB, 5,400. So you're saving 2,700 versus going Hurts on DraftKings. Winston went for 27 points last week. It's going to be weird and ugly every week with Cleveland now, but he's going to throw the shit out of the ball. And, as long as he gets 20 plus, I'll be pretty happy. Going 54 at quarterback affords us the opportunity to go Bijan Robinson in the number one slate at running back. 3 games in a row, 25, 26, 23. Finally getting in the end zone. He's doing it in the air. He's doing it on the ground. And he's doing it against the Swiss cheese Cowboy defense this week. Always feel good when we overlap, Mikey. So happy to see you have James Cook coming off that game last week with the 2 TDs, 100 yards, 31 points. He's been very good overall for Buffalo. If Tua is still rusty, this is going to end up being a game where there's going to be a lot of James Cook because Buffalo ain't going to have to do much. So I like Cook there. So, able to spend 14.6 on the 2 running backs, which is nice. A.J. Brown for Philadelphia. He's my pay-up wide out here. Couple of them that I like for the week, but Brown has gotten, finally starting to return to that first half of last year form. I like him home against Jacksonville today. We got, and again, you play the injury game, right? No Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir. It doesn't matter who's been on the field for Buffalo at the wide receiver position this year. Shakir's been the one consistent constant. Went for 22 last week, 107 on 9 catches. So I'm loving that matchup again. And, I'm not going to lie, Mikey. This guy had not crossed my mind for 1 second prior to hopping on this show today. But you guys opened my eyes to what Tillman's done the last couple of weeks. And if I'm going to like Jameis Winston, I got to like these wideouts that he's throwing to. So for $4,300, Tillman went for 28 last week, 12 the week before. So I'm excited about that for the pay up. The one shot I'm going to take this week is Gesicki for the Bengals. Oh, I don't even know how to do that. No T. Higgins. Gesicki went for 773 last week with no T. Higgins. Looking him to do a repeat of that at 3,100 home against Vegas. And we're going to play again, this lineup has changed since 11 a.m. With Brian Robinson out, we are going to go Austin Eckler. I had some Tracy in before, but I actually kind of like Eckler more, understanding that he's going to be in the red zone now along with passing situations. And then I'm going to pick on the Jacksonville offense this week. They might score some points, but they're going to be a mess. The Eagle defense is finally starting to gel a little bit. It's not my favorite play of the week, but to be completely honest, I see what you're saying with the Chargers defense, but Cleveland could score some points with Winston there, so I don't love that. I guess, do you go the Tennessee defense? Jeff probably would say yes. But I actually kind of feel like Philadelphia's got the best shot for like a defensive touchdown and a bunch of turnovers. I guess I'd ask your opinion on that. What defense in that situation do you prefer there?
I actually agree. I feel like the Eagles are going to give you the best shot to score because I think they're going to be able to stay ahead in that game. And I think you're just going to see a lot of scoring. I mean, not like anything crazy by any means, but they're going to have to be in a position where they're going to have to throw the ball to keep up. And that's just going to increase the opportunities for those corners to pick that ball off and possibly take it back in. But at least I can definitely at least give you 2 turnovers in that game because that defense is usually pretty good about forcing the ball out. I really like this lineup a lot. There's really not a whole lot wrong with it that I can see. Gesicki hasn't really been a guy that validates too much of a start, but really at the tight end position, there hasn't been a whole lot of guys that have been, and you're going to have to pay up so much higher for somebody that can give you about the same production anyways. So that's about the only thing I'd have an argument for is that position right there. But otherwise, I think you're doing it right. I think you got the right idea as far as a lot of these options and how we're going to start the football game there. So I do dig it a lot. I like it. I think that's going to be another good one. And that's, and you, like you said, your lineups changed twice. And that's why we kind of started doing this on Sundays as opposed to Saturday nights. If you've been following us and wondering where we've been, it's just because we have our lineups changed so much. And we hate to say that, oh, well, we got a winner. Well, we get a winner when we change 2 or 3 positions on Sunday morning, after we sit and talk. And because we do this, I mean, we talk quite a bit throughout the week, but on the weekends, we really kind of start pounding out like how we feel about certain things. And these guys are freaking geniuses. So they've changed my mind at least 2 or 3 times a week. And I think likewise, I think that there's a lot of times that I'm able to add insight that makes them change their mind as well. And so that's why we kind of started doing this on Sunday. So if you've been wondering what's been kind of happening with that DFS Chalk Talk, it's kind of more of a combined effort now here on Sundays, just so we can give you our latest and greatest lineup that we're thinking that day. And that said, you still kind of want to follow us on Twitter because there's a lot of times where we get done on here and we just keep talking off the phone, off the line. And I changed my mind about 3 or 4 more times again. So I always just want to make sure that if we're riding the lightning with us, I want to make sure we're riding the same damn lightning. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. And then, like I said, kind of expect to have this every week. And as far as it goes, it looks like we're all caught up on questions and comments there. Joe, do you have anything to add or anything like that?
No, you're absolutely right on the DFS piece. One changed, Eckler being the starter today. You now take Eckler, that saves you $1,000. So now you got to go apply that $1,000. Half your lineup could change just based on that. So you're absolutely right. We appreciate everybody. Stick here to the updates up till 1 p.m. and a big week 9 today. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I mean, heck, that questionable tag is answered usually by about the time we hit the blitz. So that's why a lot of times those can also change because you got guys that you're just like, oh, I know he's going to start. And then they pull a fast one on you like T. Higgins. I'm wondering if T. Higgins' leg injury isn't a little bit like Devontae Adams' leg injury. Like once he gets traded or he gets paid, all of a sudden we're like Willy Wonka rolling into the beginning of that show where he just kind of flops in and walks in. So with that, guys, thank you so much. We will catch you again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel again. Just go ahead and count on DFS Chalk Talk being part on Sundays. We won't be back on Saturdays, but we will be back. Make sure you're following, liking, subscribing, hitting that bell for all things Triple Play Fantasy. That includes your basketball, your baseball, your football, all in one source. They're really starting to take off with basketball. So make sure you're doing that. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you again next week. Good luck. Let's rip it up.